Alright, this is chapter 4. Picking up from chapter 4, this is number 3 or part C of chapter 4 lecture with this thing. So here's what I like for you to know. Make sure you understand when you come across an if-else statement that if this is if the condition in here, if it's true, then you execute the block. But if the Boolean expression is false, you actually go to the else statements with it. That I guarantee will be some sort of form of test questions with it. The other piece I like for you to know is if you look at the logical operator in this, let me come down here. So basically nested if statements. Let me just move along here and pick up the nested if statement. One of them is anytime when you nest an if statement appears inside of another block or a single block is called a nest if. The nested if is executed only if the outer if is the results of true condition. Now, this plays a key role later on when we get into arrays and when you get into for loops and all of this. When you start to write rows and columns, it plays a very important role with this thing as well. So let me pull up the lone qualifier and hold on a second, I'm going to pause this. So this is the one that is the lone qualifier. This is the one that's a code listing 4-5. This is on page 210. So everything else is pretty much, you should be straightforward with it. But if you take a look at this right here, this is the new part in here that I want to talk to you about is the lone qualifier with this thing. So when you take a look at the salary, if it's greater, if this is true, 50,000. And there's a nested loop. This is what's called the nesting of loop in here. So if they work in two conditions, they have to work, in this case, is their salary is greater than 50,000. Their year on the job is greater than or equal to 2 years. So these are the two conditions that you can write. If it's true, you can actually qualify with a lone. If anything that these two conditions that does not meet the two conditions with it, you can also do what's false with this thing. So let's say you're looking for another example I can write you. Let's say you're looking for a guy if I was sampling a student, I'm looking for males above 21 that wears glasses, for example. So I would have male above 21, age above greater than or equal to 21, and then in my nested one I would look at wears glasses, true or false, or something along that line with it. So these are the two conditions you can do if else with it. If any of these two conditions do not meet, they would fall out of the loop with this thing. Now, a lot of times you can do this. You don't want to do this too extreme to have what's called spaghetti code. So you got to be careful with that as well. Okay. So let me pause for a moment. So that was the lone qualifier that we just take a look at. So if you look at the flow chart of an if statement and how a nesting of an if statement's flow chart in this thing, and they talk about, and it's very important how you need to know this, because when you look at a flow chart, you're going to be able to translate this from this to a code with this, saying just by looking at, is it cold outside? Yes. Is it snowing? Yes or no. So you could see how this is nested inside this outer loop with this thing. So this is the nested if else, and this is the outer if else with it as well. So the matching curly brackets used is not required if there is only one statement. Again, if there's only one statement, there's no need. However, sometimes curly brackets can help make the program more readable with this thing. So additional proper indentation makes readability a lot easier with it as well. So here is what you just saw was, are they employed? Does this equal yes? Recent graduate, again, the equal is it's a comparison of relational operators with this thing, and it meets anytime when you have, if it doesn't meet, it kicks this out with this. An if else statement can become very complex. Imagine of the following decision: say if it's very cold, wear a heavy coat. Else, if it's chilly, wear a light jacket. If it's windy, wear like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory. But I want to make sure that you understand is the key thing is the if, the else, the last else always belong to the previous if. Be careful, don't read this else with this if. Okay, this else belongs to this if right here. So this is what they call as if-else if, all right, in this case with it. So care must be used with the else statement to match up with the immediate unmatched if statement. So what they're talking about is here's this else that belongs to this if. This else does not belong to this if. Okay. What is confusing is when you look at this, it's the preceding unmatched if statement. Okay, so two examples are test grades and test results that you will see in here. And this flow chart basically, if else if you look at a good way how to use if else if are ranges of scores or ranges of grades, or in this case with it. So let me pause here. I'm going to pull the test score. So this one is the test grades and test results. I'm going to actually pull up for you to take a look at. Let's look at the test grade. And in the test grade, of course, you have your class is called test grade, and it's the same name as your file, but this is the one I want you to look to get the grade. So when you take a look at char as grade, and this is what you're returning is if this is true with it. You look at this structure, the way how this is nested in and it's pushed in with this. Again, this else belongs to this if. And as you can see, the curly bracket, how it's indented in with this block code, and this belongs to this block code, and you see how this indentation comes in with it, and this belongs to each one of these block codes with it as well. So here's my point. Is if you look at this, in this example, they started from the bottom range and going up with this thing. And of course, there's no right way of doing this or a wrong way of doing this. It just depends on how you look at it. But at the end of the day, with this function, since this is a public char data type, you got to return a grade with a char data type with this thing. So it's a get, means it's going to return whatever you will actually return back this grade with this thing. And again, it goes through this filter. There's other ways you can do this. You can do this with a case switch statement as well, and then I'm going to talk to you about this later on. But just to parallel this with in the book with this thing is you could see how this flow chart works with it. Each one of these things are nested inside it with a condition. When it's true, it executes the below within the bracket. If it's false, it goes to the next else statements with this thing. So what am I looking for? So look at your logical operators with this. So Java provides two logical operators. There's careful. These are logical operators, not relational operators. Relational operators are the ones that we've been looking at. The less than, greater than, not equal, equal, equal. Those are all sets of what's called relational. Logical operators are ands and ors and not. Okay. So very same as 1436 that we talked about in chapter 4 and 5 in C++, all those concept transfers to here. For the most part, in most programming language, they all do the same thing. And this is where you're going to see the table of truth in here. So I'll walk you through this. I assume you had some sort of understanding for this thing with it. So, but the key thing is I want to point out, and this is that there's also what's called short circuit, if you remember. For an AND, which is ampersand, ampersand in this thing. Let me pause right here for a moment, stop this, and I'm going to pick up on part 4, okay?